You know that feeling, right? You have a million things to do, but you just can't stop yourself from picking up your phone. Well, today we're diving deep into that feeling. We're going to call it screen addiction. And in this explainer, we're not just going to look at why it happens, but how you can actually start to reclaim your mind from it. So why can't you stop scrolling? I mean, it seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer is way more complicated than you might think. If you've ever found yourself hours deep in a social media feed, just know it's not a personal failing. It's not about a lack of willpower. It's because your brain has been caught in a loop that was designed to be as powerful as possible. And the sheer scale of this is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. The average adult is now spending around 11 hours every single day staring at some kind of screen. Think about that for a second. For most of us, that's more time than we spend sleeping. Our entire lives are being lived through these glowing rectangles. And this is where it gets really serious, especially for younger generations. This chart, it's from a study that found something truly alarming. Teens who spend 5 or more hours a day on their devices have a staggering 71% higher risk for suicide factors than kids who only use them for an hour. This isn't just a bad habit. This is a legitimate public health crisis. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the science behind that endless scroll. Then we'll get into what this is actually doing to your brain over the long haul and the real cost of all these free apps. And finally, and this is the important part, we're going to talk about how to flip the script from being a consumer to a producer with real strategies to take back your attention. So let's start at the very core of the problem, the brain chemistry. See, it all boils down to this one incredibly powerful chemical that modern technology has gotten really, really good at manipulating. You've probably heard of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, right? Well, that's not quite the whole story. It's much more accurate to call it the motivation chemical. It's the engine in your brain that pushes you to seek out things you need to survive. And here's the trick. When you get a little notification, a like, or see a funny video, your brain gets a tiny hit of that dopamine, which just makes you want to seek out another one and another one. The best way to think about it is like carving a path through a forest. The first time you check your phone after a buzz, you're clearing away a few branches. Do it again, and that path gets wider. After years, it's not a path anymore. It's a 6-lane superhighway. The behavior becomes so automatic, so deeply wired into your brain, you don't even realize you're doing it. So what's the actual long-term consequence of flooding your brain with these little dopamine hits day after day, year after year? Well, the changes that happen are profound, and honestly, they're a little bit scary. Just take a look at the difference here. On the left, you've got a brain with a healthy, balanced number of dopamine receptors. It's ready to enjoy all the normal stuff in life. But on the right, that's a brain that has been constantly bombarded by screens. And to cope with that constant assault, it's been forced to make a pretty drastic change. It's a defense mechanism. Your brain is smart and it's trying to protect itself from being overwhelmed by this constant flood of stimulation. So what does it do? It literally starts pulling out its own dopamine receptors. This process is called downregulation, and it's how you build a tolerance. Suddenly, that same funny video that used to make you laugh doesn't do anything. You need more and more and more just to feel okay. And this leads to a phenomenon that some experts have started calling terminal boredom. Your brain's baseline for what counts as interesting gets raised so incredibly high that the real world just can't compete. A walk in the park, reading a book, even just having a quiet conversation with a friend can feel painfully, intensely boring because none of those things give you that massive dopamine spike your brain now craves. And look, this isn't all just in your head. This endless cycle of stimulation and tolerance has real, measurable costs that affect our bodies and our minds every single day. Check out this data from a study of college students. Even at 45 hours a day, which, let's be honest, is pretty normal for a lot of us, over 41% of them reported symptoms of insomnia. Almost 28% had dry eyes, and a quarter of them had symptoms of carpal tunnel. And no surprise, as the hours of screen time went up, so did all of these problems. But beyond the physical stuff, there's a much deeper psychological price we're paying. It's been called introspective failure. We're so quick to pull out our phones to escape any hint of boredom or shame or anxiety. But here's the thing, those negative feelings are actually crucial signals. They're your brain's way of telling you that something needs to change. By constantly numbing them, we lose touch with our own internal compass, making it impossible to know what we really want out of life. This quote really just nails the long-term stakes of all of this. See, passive screen time eats away at our executive functions. The ability to plan, to focus, to actually get difficult things done.
So it stands to reason that the people who protect and develop those skills are going to have a huge advantage over those whose attention has been shattered into a million pieces. Okay, I know that was all pretty heavy. You might be feeling a little down about all this, but here's the good news. This is not about demonizing technology or telling you to throw your phone in a river. The real solution is about completely reframing your relationship with it. And it really all boils down to this fundamental choice right here. Are you in consumer mode, just passively letting an endless stream of content wash over you? Or are you in producer mode, actively using these incredible tools to create something, to learn a skill, to build something new? There's this one story that illustrates this so perfectly. A guy was saying how he had a computer for 14 years, and he mostly just played games and browsed the web, and he learned basically nothing. But then he spent just 4 years actively creating videos, learning to edit, to write, to understand how it all works, and he learned a ton. The only thing that changed was that he switched from consuming to producing. All right, so let's get down to the practical stuff. How do you actually make that shift? We're going to cover 3 concrete, science-backed strategies you can start using today to rewire your brain and take back control of your attention. These 3 strategies are all about a concept called binding. The goal here isn't to rely on some kind of superhuman willpower. It's about creating intentional friction. You're just making it a little bit harder to mindlessly consume, which makes it a whole lot easier to make a conscious choice. First up is chronological binding. This is a fascinating one. In one study, they found that lab rats with unlimited access to cocaine would use it until it killed them. But rats that were only given access for 1 hour a day kept their usage totally stable. The same principle works for our phones. Instead of checking it randomly 100 times a day, set aside a specific block of time. This breaks that addictive cycle of unlimited access. Next up, physical binding. This one sounds almost too simple, but trust me, it's an absolute game changer. Just create some distance. When you go to bed, turn your phone off and put it in another room. When you need to focus on work, put it in a drawer. Often that urge to check is super fleeting, and just a tiny bit of physical friction is all you need to let that urge pass. And finally, we have categorical binding. The goal here is to turn your phone from a shiny Las Vegas slot machine back into a boring but useful tool. Seriously, try turning on grayscale mode. You will be amazed at how much less you want to look at it. Delete the apps you don't really need and move the most addictive ones, social media, games, so you can only use them on your desktop. Basically, turn your phone back into a phone. So we end with this question. Your screen is a tool, one of the most powerful tools ever invented. It can be used to create amazing things, or it can be used to consume your single most valuable resource, your own attention. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. Thanks for joining us.